Hey, let's talk about an interesting angle that happened in October of '98. It's when Austin brought a gun out and put it to Vince McMahon's head. Now,
Yeah.
it's not exactly the Brian Pilman angle. Of course, we know Austin's going to have Vince pee his pants, and he pulls the trigger, and out comes a little flag that says bang. Of course, Dave would say in The Observer that this was basically lifted from a fairly unknown movie, the 1994 Kevin Spacey film known as Swimming with Sharks. Did you know when this angle was happening that this was loosely based on a Kevin Spacey movie, or
I,
what did you think of this gun situation?
well, I was not a big fan of it. The Kevin Spacey thing was not on my radar. Uh, but the idea was to make sure that Vince pissed his pants. This was a Vince idea. He wanted to do it this way, and Austin went along with it. You see Austin his deer hunting gear, uh, same gear he wore when I went to interview him in Michigan on the night that D'Lo Brown and Draws had their issue. But we just kept trying to figure out ways to use Vince as a heel in a heel role, and that was the one way to get through it. The fans, Connie, the fans are so Austin affiliated and supportive. Whatever he did in that era would work. They loved to see him. They wanted to see him. And so Austin and Vince doing their little comic thing and comedic thing was you got to look at what sold. Did you get a rating? I don't know what kind of rating we got that night, but I bet you it was pretty good.
Yeah, very good. And I should mention, we're doing this in front of a crowd of sold out 13,000 fans. But what I want to point out is, we mentioned it earlier. It's not exactly the Brian Pillman situation. That was at least, we were made to believe that was a real gun, and it probably was. But here, this is just a stunt. The little flag's going to come out and say bang 316 or what have you.
All right.
But I remember in '96 when you guys were trying this Austin Pillman thing, man, the USA Network totally buried the WWF for doing that and for having a gun involved. Now, 2 years later in 1998, I bet they didn't say shit. Production has its privileges. Is that the way you remember it?
Yeah, absolutely. Then we had no pushback from USA whatsoever once they understood what we were doing. And again, it was comedic in nature. By that I mean, the Austin pissing his pants was kind of the payoff, or not Austin, but Vince pissing his pants was kind of the payoff, and it seemed like it worked out pretty good. But again, I'm not sure what the rating was. You'll know more about that than me, but I bet you it did a real nice rating.
I do want to ask you about another story from October. The New York Magazine comes out with Vince McMahon on the cover, and he's going to basically say that the television character of Steve Austin is actually just playing the real life role of Vince McMahon.
Oh.
And it's speculated that the New York Magazine folks really wanted Austin on the cover, and Vince shut it down. Vince wanted himself on the cover. I've never heard that until we started doing research for this episode. He never told the folks at New York Magazine why he didn't want Austin on the cover. And I find that kind of weird. Is that just ego, or is there something else at play there?
I would think Steve didn't want to do it.
Okay, there you go.
I would think Steve didn't want to travel to to do the photo shoot with Vince, just because Steve was Steve. He didn't think he needed it. So, but having Undertaker and Vince on the cover still worked for us because Vince was Austin's adversary. So putting the adversary on the cover just added more fuel to the Austin McMahon fire.
I think one of the other stories that bubbles to the surface around this same time is the whole Universal Soldier sequel. Of course, a lot of our younger fans will remember the Universal Soldier movie starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. Well, they're going to get ready to do a sequel to that. And allegedly, the producers of that film wanted Austin. And Austin's agent, Elliot Pollock, I believe at the time, brought the movie up. Austin knew nothing about it. And he told Austin that Goldberg was getting $250,000 for the role. Austin complained to McMahon, who had given him a $50,000 figure and said it was too low. And I guess Vince, as the story goes, put the heat on Jim Bell, who was heading up the licensing division, and says he was the one who fielded the offer and turned it down. And I guess Austin is pissed off that he was never even offered this opportunity, that the WWE just made the decision without him. What do you remember of this movie role and maybe the hurt feelings that Austin missed it and Goldberg got it?
Well, it was a clusterfuck, quite honestly. Jim Bell, I always liked Jim Bell. However, he got fired. He was one of the guys, one of the casualties of the restructuring and all that stuff. He was he was a little bit challenging to work with. Austin couldn't understand that and didn't understand it unless it had some hurt feelings, as we say. But it had some hurt feelings. Austin missed out on some paydays, which is what he was looking for. But I don't know how to tell you. It was just Jim Bell was a good guy, but not a smart guy, and he let a lot of opportunities pass by. He would pass on things that you normally would say, well, look, let's just try to dig into this a little bit deeper and get Austin more money. If we get Austin more money, he'll be happy. And when you can make your top guy happy, that's a win. But Bill didn't look at it that way. So, and Steve missed out on some paydays. It was unfortunate. Big paydays, six-figure paydays.
It feels like a Vince McMahonism. I mean, even going back to a prior generation, I think in 1985, as the story goes, the producers of The Love Boat wanted Wendy Richter in 1985. But as the story goes, they heard from Titan, you'll get Hulk Hogan or nobody. And even this New York magazine, allegedly, they want Steve Austin. And Vince says, no, how about Rocky Maivia instead? They don't want Rocky. They settle on Vince McMahon. But even there's a story out there that Walmart wanted some sort of sponsorship or promotional deal with the company, and they asked for Austin, and Vince was trying to push The Rock instead. Now, I understand that from a Vince standpoint. We don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. You know, we've seen what's happened with that before. Do you think Vince was learning from what had happened with Hulk Hogan before and didn't want to make the company too reliant on a single person, have a single point of failure?
It could have been. The thing about it was Austin was hot.
Yes.
And we didn't fully take advantage of that scenario and that timing. And sometimes that timing is not going to last forever. So the Walmart deal, I remember the Walmart deal. And Steve was happy about it and excited about it because he knew that he would sell a lot of merchandise in Walmart. And eventually he did. It was a good partnership, as I recall. So you'd have that information because you did the research and I didn't. But I haven't read the notes yet. Maybe I will later. But Austin was the Walmart thing opened his eyes. Said, "Hey, look, this ain't gonna be a bad deal. We can make it happen."